Greetings, my friends. Jesus tells us that in this life that there are two sets of people, those who are with him and those who are against him. One scripture writer says that if you harden your heart, you can't listen. In other words, you are deaf. You can't hear. Thus, hearing is a prerequisite for listening. For those who harden their hearts, there's no prayer or no growth. Today in our first reading, we hear strong statements from the prophet Jeremiah about how God's people don't listen to his words. God reminds the prophet Jeremiah that they haven't been faithful to the covenant that they have made with the Lord. In fact, God tells Jeremiah that the people will probably not listen to him either. And then in our gospel reading, Jesus drives a demon out of a man who was mute. Quite naturally, the crowds were amazed at the healing power of Jesus. However, some of his critics believe that he was able to do this only through the power of Beelzebub, the prince of demons. And rather than seeing the intervention of God's saving power in the healing act, they only see in Jesus the power of another evil spirit. Sisters and brothers, no matter what Jesus said or did, the people seemed to simply refuse to believe in him. And just like Jeremiah, Jesus encountered stiff-necked people who only seemed interested in themselves. I suppose you could say that the same issue is found in our society today. When people do not want to believe, there's nothing that will change their minds. They will refuse to acknowledge goodness staring them right in the face. And how sad that the Pharisees wouldn't give Jesus a chance. From the very beginning, they rejected Jesus. They were also frightened of him. Were they jealous of his popularity with the people? Because no matter what Jesus did, it was wrong and sinful in the Pharisees' eyes. But the one thing about these encounters in the first reading and the gospel was that even though both Jeremiah and Jesus encountered stubborn opposition, they still went ahead with their mission of proclaiming the reign of God to the people. Sisters and brothers, our scriptures today invite us to help us take a closer look at ourselves. And what we need to do is to ask how far the words of Jeremiah apply to us. How carefully do we really listen? How well do we carry out the will of God in our lives? How clearly can we discern the presence of God in our daily situations? What kind of influence or force are we in our communities? We may encounter people in our lives who just aren't interested in our witness to the good news, but we're still called to do it. We need to be careful about judging the other side as the stiff-necked ones without looking at ourselves first. But whatever the situation, our witness to the good news of Jesus has to be done out of love and compassion. We need to be careful not to judge others, but to remain faithful to our call as his followers. Both readings today urge us to listen carefully to God speaking to us in our lives. So let's not be blinded by bias of any kind, which might prevent us from recognizing the signs or the voice or the hand of God in people and experiences we may have during any ordinary day. Because there are many times when we write off people and events and so fail to realize that God is saying something important to us through them. They may be saints or sinners, it doesn't matter. God can and does use any channel to reach us. How appropriate then is T.S. Eliot's Ash Wednesday Lament, written over 94 years ago, to our Lenten journey. And I quote, "Where shall the word be found? Where will the word resound? Not here. There is enough silence. The right time and the right place are not here. No time to rejoice for those who walk among noise and deny the voice." End of quote. My friends, we have 3 weeks to let the Spirit of God drive the demons of stiff-neckedness out of our hearts. As this Lenten season unfolds, let us recommit ourselves to using the gifts of God, our voice, our witness, and our capacity to love our neighbor, and to combat evil in any disguise when it takes with our society. Perhaps each day our prayer might be the refrain from today's responsorial psalm, Psalm 95, that we might hear God's voice and not harden our hearts.